Hello and welcome to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics affecting seniors and their families. I'm your host, Mindy Felinton. Maybe you or someone you know or love can't quite hear the way they used to. Well, it's a common theme, and my guests today are going to talk about hearing loss as we age and share with us some hopefully very helpful information and solutions for us. My first guest is Dr. Jenifer Cushing, who is an audiologist with A&A Hearing Group, and Viki Ryan, who is a registered nurse, also with A&A Hearing Group. Welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Why is it that hearing loss is something that we relate to an aging process?
Hearing loss affects everyone. I mean, whether it doesn't affect you as an individual, almost everyone knows someone with a hearing loss. Most of the time we attribute it to someone who is aging because that is one of the most common types of hearing loss, is an age-related hearing loss. But there are many other types of hearing problems that can come because of work-related injuries, such as noise-induced hearing loss. You could have a hearing loss that's due to something that happened in childhood. Maybe it's some type of genetic factor, or maybe you're born with a hearing loss. So it really impacts everyone. But hearing loss is very unique because it's completely invisible. So the way that it impacts someone is very gradual, typically over time. That's the most common type of hearing loss, is that it just affects someone over maybe 10 to 20 years, and all of a sudden it's like they hit some threshold, and then they wake up and go, I'm just not hearing that like I used to. So I think most likely it impacts the significant others or the family members.
I was going to say, usually it's rarely, as opposed to vision loss, where a person is looking at something and they're going, that just doesn't look right anymore. It's not as sharp, it's not as clear. You're driving, the street signs, you can't read them now like you used to be able to. So you're aware of the loss. With hearing loss, usually it's the loved one, family members, friends that notice for you that you're missing what they're saying, because you have no idea that somebody's back here, talking to you and saying things and trying to communicate with you. Or you're at a restaurant and the person's going but they really have no idea what you're saying, but they're going and then once you start to get those missed cues and the person isn't responding to your questions the way in an appropriate way, right, because they're responding to what they think they heard, not what you actually said, the other person is aware that there's a hearing loss. And the other person might think that person necessarily isn't suffering hearing loss, but they're suffering memory loss, right, or some disorientation cognitively. Correct.
And what also comes to my mind is, for example, calling someone on the telephone and hearing their television blasting. Or I know when I go to see clients at home, and they have the TV on upon my arrival, and it is so loud.
And they don't sometimes realize it's so loud, and they'll just keep the volume up. And then somehow you have to work into the conversation, well, let's turn down that TV, or let's turn off some of this noise before we start our meeting. But they may not think it's loud at all. The volume is up.
Right.
And some of the things that cue people in are not necessarily that they've lost their hearing, but it's the increase in conflict in the interpersonal relationships, because you're not listening to me. You don't remember what I said. You don't pay attention to me. And it's not so much that they're not paying attention. It's that they're not grasping what's being said. And therefore, so you start to have all of these other issues that go along with hearing. And you're right. Many people do confuse a hearing loss and they mistake it for dementia, even though there's a very big correlation between even mild hearing loss and the increase of dementia and the rapidity with which the risk increases, depending on your hearing loss. They are somewhat linked. I just read recently a study that showed that 83% of the people who have dementia have some form of a hearing loss, and in a certain population that the dementia, the severity of the dementia can be categorized as severe, but once they get their hearing loss treated, it can be brought down to a moderate case of dementia. In other words, it wasn't that they had so much dementia, it's just that it was compounded with the hearing loss, and once you can ameliorate the hearing loss, then you get, the person can cognitively function better. So it's very important.
Oh, absolutely. It sounds like a critical piece in the component and diagnosis and treatment of people with dementia. And do you know, perchance, if doctors who are treating them are in a regimen where they are, in fact, looking at that component of a patient's care?
I don't know for sure, but I think that more and more people, as studies are coming out and knowing that there's a link between hearing loss and dementia, that I think that you'll see more and more hearing screenings or hearing tests being part of that routine battery of testing for dementia.
And then something that people have to take some personal responsibility with and recognize that ideally you'd want the professional to be doing it, but in many cases, most physicians don't have a soundproof booth in their office. That's what they refer to an audiologist or possibly an ENT for. So their idea of a screening is if the person has nodded wisely and answered appropriately, that they can hear them. And so it's really important for the individual to be proactive and to request, just to make sure, because it does happen so slowly and insidiously, that people don't necessarily realize how much they're missing until it has hit that threshold that Dr. Cushing talks about, where you go, gee, this is really impacting me. But to get to that point takes a long time. And the bad part about waiting that time is that what you could gain from the hearing loss you could gain back from having a hearing aid to recoup that loss, you're never necessarily going to gain as much of it back as you could have if you had gotten treatment earlier. In other words, the longer you wait, the less hearing potential you get back. So it's important to get treated early. And a lot of people don't think about that. They think, oh, well, I don't want to spend the money on a hearing aid right now because my hearing's not that bad, when in fact that's when they should be taking care of their hearing loss.
Very helpful for people to know that. For myself. Because I think between my left and my right, there's a little something going on in one of those ears. And also, I think what's important, and for our viewers to take with them from our conversation thus far, is not only that the patient be the advocate with the doctors to explore the audiology component, but the caregivers to be aware of the fact that if you're the spokesperson, which commonly is happening, particularly with our memory loss patients, clients, it would really be important for the caregiver to be aware of the fact that you need to address this with the doctor, recommending that should we not explore having an audiologist examine my mom, my dad, my spouse, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that there's more and more people coming in that are younger, that are proactive about having their hearing examined. Their family members are mentioning it, and I think that they are coming in because they have seen their parents or their grandparents go through some type of hearing impairment, and it was untreated, or it was treated too late. And so we do have some people that are coming in, and even in an older population, when you have a husband and wife come in, and usually I recommend, why don't you both have your hearing tested, because sometimes it is affecting both people, but it may just be affecting one person more than the other. And then settle the bet, if whoever has the most hearing loss or whoever thinks they don't have any hearing loss, you have to make dinner for the other person, buy them, take them out to dinner. But I think it's nice. You don't know how much hearing loss you have until you come into the office, have a hearing exam. We isolate the right ear from the left ear. We can pinpoint each frequency if that's having a problem, and then we also do speech testing. So it may not be that their hearing loss is really moderate or severe, but you could have a mild hearing loss and still have really poor clarity or processing of the signal. So the signal's coming in the ear, it's getting to the brain, but that's where it gets jumbled up. And so you can only do with what you hear, and so it might be coming in, but it's just not clear. And that's part of the test battery, is that the clarity of the hearing is also tested in a quiet room, but also background noise is also tested, which I think is really important. We live in a noisy world, and that's one of the sure signs that someone's starting to have hearing trouble is that they have difficulty hearing in background noise. And so part of our test battery is to turn on some background noise, not just static, but people talking, and analyze how do they hear in a situation with just a little bit of background noise, and then we turn it up and the background noise gets louder and see where things fall apart. And so having that understanding between myself and the patient, they then can say, see, this is where I'm having trouble, or we can, and from there we can recommend certain therapies, whether it's a hearing aid or whether they just need help hearing in background noise. There's programs out there, that if they don't have any hearing loss, but they just have a problem hearing in background noise, there are programs to enhance processing abilities to help people hear.
And what types of programs are they?
There's one program, it's called LACE, L-A-C-E. It's a listening and communication enhancement program, and like all technology today, it's done on a computer. So the patient has a computer disc, and it's a program where you exercise your brain. You're listening and to different clips on a video in your computer or your TV, and it could be a woman's voice, it could be a child's voice, and it could be a man's voice. Those are all different people that most people have trouble hearing, especially the children, and then background noise turns up. And as they hear a sentence being played, they have to listen to the sentence and then choose the correct written sentence that they heard, or it could be just a single word. And it's a great program because if they are flying through with flying colors and they're acing every question, the test knows and it gets more difficult. So the background noise starts to get higher and louder, and then it challenges you even more. So if it shows that you're not doing so well, then it keeps the level at a manageable test range for that person. So it's a great program. It's recommended that you do it consistently for a couple of weeks, and then the results can actually be transmitted through the internet to the audiologist so that we can analyze how they're doing, the before score and the after score, and then make recommendations from there.
That program brings up a really interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people think about, which is the correlation of the brain and hearing. A lot of people think you hear with your ears, and the sound goes in through your ears, but you process it with your brain. And so there's a great deal of an adaptation that has to happen in order to retrain the brain once it has gotten used to not getting the signal of sound, which is one of those reasons that people have issues or have had issues in the past with hearing aids. When you lose your vision and you put on a pair of glasses, you're 20/20 like when you were 10 years old in most cases. But when you lose your hearing and you get a hearing aid, your brain has to completely be retrained and readapted. It's not an instantaneous fix. And a lot of people have the expectation that hearing aids are going to react like, or your hearing is going to react like your eyes do to glasses, and that's not the way it works. So you have to have a really good relationship with your audiologist because it's a long-term relationship as opposed to going to the eye doctor, getting the prescription, getting glasses, and you don't see them again. Very different relationship that you would have with your audiologist.
Interesting. I had no idea. Well, we are going to take a short break, and when we come back, I'd like to continue addressing that because I'm very interested in learning more about that part and getting back to the original question too about what are the causes of the hearing loss more in the senior population. Right. So we're going to go to break right now, and we will be right back.
Michael Adams?
Here.
Michael Adams?
Here.
Michael Adams.
Michael Adams.
Students who miss 18 days of school in any grade risk falling behind and not graduating. Absences add up. Keep track at boostattendance.org today.
Welcome back to Senior Solutions, where we bring you topics affecting seniors and their families. And I'm your host, Mindy Felinton, and I'm joined today by Dr. Jenifer Cushing and also Viki Ryan, who is a registered nurse and they're both with A&A Hearing Group. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And again, thank you very much for being here today.
Pleasure.
We left off before our break talking about hearing aids and how people put off dealing with hearing loss. And what comes to my mind as it relates to hearing aids is that most people, like myself, I'm speaking for myself, and that we have this preconceived notion that hearing aids are something that are external, I had to spit that one out, external and visible, and are something that maybe don't look quite like they might want it to look. And in fact, I guess that is not the case. Can you talk a little bit about the present state of hearing aids and how they work? And I think you can illustrate a little bit about the new and the greatest.
I think that what you mentioned about how they're external and big and bulky, I think that most people probably envision a hearing aid to be like that. So you're not the only one.
Well, that makes me feel better.
And so that's part of the stigma of why people don't go to an audiologist and think about getting a hearing aid, because they don't want to look old. They don't want to do something about it. And even if they're hearing great, everyone sees something hanging off their ear or something big in the ear. They're not ready for that. It's a big step. So manufacturers of hearing aids are always working to miniaturize things. And with technology today, they have miniaturized hearing aids significantly. One of the styles that has been fairly popular in the last 10 years is a over-the-ear external hearing aid, like you mentioned, but it has a more streamlined appearance that's very sleek. So the hearing instrument will sit behind the ear, as you mentioned. It's external, and it has a thin wire or a hollow tube that delivers the sound into the ear, which is attached to either a customized mold like this one or a universal earpiece that universal, it'll fit most people. It's very comfortable. And so when you have this on the ear, if I demonstrate by just placing it over top of my hand, you see it disappear. So that thin wire or tube just disappears right next to the ear here. And so that's one of the designs that's actually gained a lot of popularity in the last decade. But certainly if you're a man with short hair or a woman even and just don't want to have anything external, the hearing aids are also miniaturizing in the sense that you could have a hearing aid that goes all the way down inside of the ear canal, and you actually need a removal line to take it out of your ear. That's how deep it goes down inside the ear. So seeing your ear from the outside, no one would even know that you have a hearing aid in the ear.
Amazing.
And so this type of style it's great. I mean, I think a lot of people, even though vanity, is important to a lot of people.
Oh yes.
A lot of so there's another hearing aid that's out there. This one, you can see it's an ear model, and the hearing aid is right in the canal here. And this one is unique because they're able to make a hearing aid that is extended wear. So just like eye contacts, where you can wear contacts repetitively daily for 30 days or longer, this particular hearing aid is extended wear because an audiologist would place it in the ear canal, and then it stays in the ear for an extended period. You don't take it out daily. You leave it there for up to 3 months at a time. You don't remove it at night. When you go to sleep, you wear it.
You can even wear it to shower.
You can wear it in the shower, in the bath.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, you can't do without a shower.
That would be scary.
You know, it's interesting because a lot of people who've never been exposed to hearing aids don't recognize that sometimes if you go to the beach, you run the risk of getting them wet or losing them. This is something that's placed so deeply in and so precisely that you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, they're very sophisticated little computers that are actually sitting on your ear or in the ear, and so you don't want to lose it. And when you invest the money in purchasing 1 or 2 hearing aids, you certainly don't want to lose it at that point. So these styles certainly anchor the hearing aid in a way where that's replacing a hearing aid shouldn't be necessary with normal use.
Can you kind of give us a ballpark of the different price differentials between the types of hearing aids?
Sure.
And I guess as you do, perhaps talk about insurance and what they would or would not cover.
Hearing aids come in a wide range. So the analogy would be if you go to any electronics store and you go to buy a new TV. And you look at all the TVs up on the wall and you go, wow, they all look so good. And you get, that one looks so much clearer. The picture is like I can reach out and touch that flower. That would be similar to a really sophisticated hearing aid. So as the price of the hearing aid increases, the technology allows more clarity in the speech. It allows more background noise reduction. And it allows the user of the hearing aid to be flexible with whatever environment they're in. So you don't have to worry that, oh, my hearing aid's not going to be able to hear so well in there, I shouldn't go to that restaurant. You don't want to isolate yourself or limit yourself because of the hearing aid. So if a patient has that higher technology, it's going to be a better quality hearing aid as far as the clarity of the sound.
I know I have a client who has recently gotten hearing aids, and he was complaining about when he would be at the tennis court, God bless him, he's out there playing tennis, and he said that it was very difficult. It was problematic for him in that part of his world. So I think he went and had those readjusted. So I guess that's the kind of thing you're talking about.
And that's important to know that the hearing aids can be readjusted. All the hearing aids today on any hearing aid you purchase should be digital. That's the entry-level hearing aid now, is everything is digitized. So when the hearing aid is purchased from the audiologist or wherever the provider, the audiologist should be programming the hearing aid to that individual's ear. So the right ear is programmed separately from the left ear. And when during that process of programming the hearing aids, there's a relationship where the audiologist is asking, how does it sound, how's the volume? And then, is there a good balance between the ears? And then finally, covering their mouth and asking, how is the clarity of the hearing aid? And most offices have some type of demonstration where they can turn on background noise and turn on other sounds to ensure that in that programming session, the patient is having benefit, even in that one hour of time and in a small office. So that way when they go to the real situation in a restaurant or a sporting event, they're prepared. Their hearing aid is programmed precisely, and so they shouldn't have much trouble in those environments.
And as your brain adapts to those new signals, you may end up in a situation where you need them reprogrammed, and that's ideal. That's why you have that long-term relationship with your audiologist, because while your brain adapts, you're moving the programming to accommodate that adaptation and to make it more comfortable in those different situations. Regarding the technology, there are technologies now that are available that will automatically sense when you enter a theater-type environment versus a quiet room or a library or the room, dining room at the facility where you might live and where there might be a din or higher ceilings. So a lot of these new hearing aids will accommodate that. And that technology, obviously, the more it's able to accommodate and be flexible in those situations, that's going to affect the price also. Regarding insurance, what we find is that Medicare will typically cover the cost of an exam. If you have a referral from your primary provider, you can go to an audiologist, and we can submit the bill to Medicare, and they will typically cover the entire cost of the actual testing. They will not cover currently the cost of any kind of device, hearing aid, or treatment for it. So that would be have to be cash pay or credit card or other secondary insurance if you happen to have one, correct. And then depending on what your insurance coverage is, as we're learning now with the changes, there are different levels of insurance coverage, and each company has they don't have one plan. It's not like the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. There is Blue Cross Blue Shield, and then they have 20 different plans in their system. So we typically check your insurance prior to your appointment to see what they will cover. Some of them do have a component that will cover a certain amment towards a hearing aid. Some of them will cover the entire amount of a particular level of technology.
Oh, really?
So it really just depends on your insurance plan. It certainly can't hurt for everyone to, find out, what does it cover. If you come to our office, we get your insurance information during the initial phone call, and then our benefits specialist finds out what your plan will cover, and the audiologist can discuss it with you at the appointment.
So it is good to know that the possibility exists
Oh,
that somebody's
absolutely.
insurance
Oh, yeah.
could cover a significant part of
It
that.
never
Absolutely.
hurts to ask, right?
Because I know from particularly my client who recently did purchase them, and his level was certainly not to the degree of, I call it your Cadillac, with the one that's inserted into the ear that is like a 3-month
Extended wear,
with
right.
baths,
Extended wear
with
hearing
showers.
aid, sure.
So it wasn't nearly like that. So I can imagine that the Cadillac is.
And you know what? That brings up something interesting. You mentioned this hearing aid here. This extended wear hearing aid is unique in that, and just like any other hearing aid, looking at a hearing aid from the outside, you don't necessarily know what's going on the inside. So you have a hearing aid that might look like this, or one that goes external, and they might be different levels of technology. So it's interesting that the price actually isn't dictated by the size of the hearing aid. And a lot of people do think that, so they come in and they'll ask, well, if I get that smaller one, is it going to be more expensive? Or maybe I can save some money by getting the bigger one that goes outside the ear. But they're actually the same price. So whether it's very teeny tiny inside the canal or one that goes over the ear, they're the same price. It's what is running the hearing aid, or I call it the engine of the hearing aid, that computer chip that's processing the signal.
Okay.
That's what changes the price of the hearing aid.
It's just fascinating to me that this is really computer driven.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hearing aid manufacturers employ a lot of engineers to make things smaller and
that's
to run-
sometimes
make
the
a computer chip.
The critique of of a hearing aid. It's like, oh, my glasses cost $200, but this hearing aid costs so much more.
Right.
Why is that? It's because when you're packing that kind of power into a small little circuit, that takes some money. In order to accommodate, so that you're not wearing this big thing around your neck anymore, the way they used to have it, or the big horn that sticks out of your ear. It costs money, and in order to continue to do the research and development to try and make it smaller, better, clearer, more flexible, that a lot of research dollars go into that too.
Yeah, well, certainly well worthwhile to be able to have the capacity to hear effectively without all of the issues for background noise, et cetera.
If I could share one quick story.
Quick.
Very
'cause
quick. Yeah, we're running out of time.
We are.
We did have a patient who came in to our office once, and she was almost catatonic. Her sister brought her in. When she did the speech test, she recognized 1 out of 16 words with, repeat the
Wow.
word. She didn't get it at all. The sister said no. They determined, yes, she does have a significant hearing loss. She was treated with hearing aids. I called to remind her of her next appointment and ended up speaking to her brother-in-law, who said, "Thank you so much. You have returned the sister-in-law that I knew when I first got married. She is a different person."
Great story.
So-
And that's a great note to end on. But if somebody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that?
Well, certainly they can look us up. Our group name is A&A Hearing Group. We have a website. It's simple, ANAHearinggroup.com.
AAHearinggroup.com.
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 So certainly we're all over the county, in Frederick County as well, in Baltimore, but we have many locations in Montgomery County.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
And if you have any ideas for a show that you'd like to see on Senior Solutions, please feel free to contact me at seniorsolutionsTV@gmail.com. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.